Hi guys, and welcome to part 2 of Fallout 3 Mod Clinic. Now for this video I'm going to be covering a mod called RH Ironsights. This is a very popular mod, a lot of people have asked me to cover it, but I wanted to test it myself and get it working as well as possible for myself before I showed you guys what I did to get it working. Now I will warn you in advance, I got it working about 99% with weapon mod kits, FWE and Eve, but there were one or two weapons that didn't want to work properly, so they don't have iron sights. I am open to any suggestions, so if anyone thinks they know how I can get all of the weapons, send me a message and I will follow up the video. But I got it working more or less as much as I want, so I'm comfortable showing you guys what I've got thus far. Now, if you don't know what iron sights are, if you go to the vanilla game and draw your weapon out, when you aim and press in the right mouse button, you can see the field of view gets reduced a little bit, like you're zooming in slightly. Your left hand comes up to hold the gun, so you're aiming it. But the gun itself is still off to the side, to the right. Now, if you've ever aimed a gun, you know this is not how you aim a gun. You use your primary eye to look down the barrel of the gun. So this is not very realistic, and it's even more noticeable on things like submachine guns and assault rifles, for example. So this is without iron sights. Now I am going to be installing the Paradox Ignition Presents the Mergers version of RH Ironsights, because as with the mergers I have used, you get less files, less ESP files, and this is because basically it merges all the files it needs into one. So in this case we're only going to end up with one main ESM file, and all the ESP files that are for the DLC have been merged into it. This does mean you must be using all the DLC. So either you've bought all the DLC or you've got the Game of the Year edition, etc. You're going to need all the DLC because this version of the mod requires it. However, you will have less ESPs in your load order, which is always good. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to download the RH Ironsights file from the mergers page. Download it to wherever you want. And we're also going to need to go along to RH Ironsights page itself for the resources. And we're going for the RH Ironsights beta file. Download it manually. Do not download with Manager. Download manually. Now, once those archives have downloaded, you need to extract the both of them. And I'm going to extract them both to my desktop. So I'm going to right click and extract the RH Ironsights beta right here. That'll take a few seconds. It's not that big. And I'm going to do the same with the Paradox Ignition Presents. Extract. And that should be a little faster. I can then delete both of these archives. Now, the files I'm going to need from RH Ironsights beta are in the data folder. I'm going to need meshes and textures. So I'm going to select both of those. Again, for those of you who don't know how to do that, I click once on meshes, then I hold the control key, and then click again on textures. So I've selected those. I'm then going to right click and cut. It's faster to do cutting. I'm then going to open up Paradox Ignition Presents. I am going to paste these right here. So I now have my meshes and textures. I am not going to need the PNG and I'm not going to need the catalog, so I'm going to delete those. Now this RH Ironsights contains all the DLC, but it has no other options. However, I don't want this one. I want one of the alternate versions, and I'll show you which in a second. So I'm going to delete this, and then I'm going to go into the alternate versions, and you get all of these. So this is DLCs plus all of these options, which I don't want. I'm not that keen on, well, I don't know if I want any of these, but what I do know is I want to remove the reticule. The reticule is the crosshair you see at the center of your screen. And when aiming with iron sights, you should not really need the reticule. So I'm going to go into there. I'm going to cut that, go back up to the main folder, Paradox Ignition Presents RH Ironsights, and I'm going to paste it here. I am then going to right-click Alternate Versions and delete that entire folder. So I now have the RH Ironsights ESM with the reticule removed. So I am going to then select everything in here, right-click and add to Paradox Ignition Presents. I'm going to leave that as it is for now. Let it do its thing. It'll take a few seconds. And once it's done that, I'm going to select this and drag it out to the desktop. And I'm going to close these and delete both of these folders. I am then going to right-click and rename this. And I'm going to remove these numbers. And in fact the foci. And I'm just going to leave it with Paradox Ignition Present RH Ironsights.ra. Is it not going to let me do? No, Ironsights.ra. The reason I've removed that number is so that Nexus Mod Manager does not go along to the web page and get a new name for my mod. This is a little easier way of making sure the mod in Nexus Mod Manager keeps a fairly reasonable name. I'm then going to open Nexus Mod Manager, Fallout 3, and once it has opened, I go along to the Mods tab. I go along to the Add Mod from File button, and I select my Paradox Ignition Presents RH Ironsights RA. A few seconds later, it will be done. As you can now see, I've got Paradox Ignition Presents RH Ironsights right below the Eve and Fallout. Select it and activate. Yes to all when prompted. You want to overwrite everything for now. Now if I go to the plugins, because it's an ESM, it will have placed the ESM fairly low down. Now it's below a few things that are actually ESPs, like Fallout Full is an ESP, and a few other ESPs are actually set as master files. The RH Ironsights should probably be, I believe Boss suggests placing it above Detect Traps, but fairly low down. So you could run Boss to find out where. What's very important is that it comes above this file. If you followed the last video I did, part 1, I was installing the Paradox Ignition, the mergers version of Eve. And one of the files we left in was the RH Ironsights patch. And I did tell you to leave that unselected if you didn't have RH Ironsights installed. Well, now that you've got RH Ironsights installed, select this. Again, I'm going to reiterate this. This is the Paradox Ignition version of Eve, and it's a patch for the Paradox Ignition version of RH Ironsights. You should not use this if you're not using both of those. And that's it for the basic installation of this mod. However, we're not done because there are a few issues. However, I'm going to start the game up and show you what we've got right now. So we get into game and you'll notice several things being added to your inventory, and these are things for RH Ironsights. Don't worry about them. Once it's finished, I'm going to draw my weapon. This is the Deagle, and I'm going to aim. You'll notice the target, the reticule, has disappeared, and I'm now aiming right down the gun. A lot more realistic, a lot more fun. You should also notice when I aim, the edge of the screen becomes very blurred. We can fix that later if you don't like it. We can change quite a lot of things with the settings, but I'll cover that later. But very cool. However, there are some issues. If I switch to the submachine gun and now aim, can you see what happens? Look where I'm aiming now. I'll aim at the C on that sign, and then I'll put... Unfortunately, the submachine gun does not seem to be correct. I'm not looking down the barrel of the gun, I'm looking right at the back of it. I can't see what I'm aiming at. This is a problem. I believe this is due to an incompatibility between this mod and the Fallout 3 Reanimated mod. If I switch to my Chinese rifle, you can also see we don't actually have any iron sights. So that's a problem. And that, I can tell you, is an incompatibility with Fallout Wanderers Edition. So we've still got a little bit of work left to do. So we're going to head back to the RH Ironsights FOSI page and go along to the file section. And I'm going to need the Ironsights FWE bridge download with Manager. The RH Ironsights Eve bridge I do not need because I have used the mergers version and those come with a compatibility patch. I am going to need this. This is the Fallout 3 Reanimated patch. So I'm going to need this download with Manager, and I am going to need the WMK bridge download with Manager plus this patch 1. So I'm going to need that as well. So that is FWE, Fallout 3 Reanimated, and WMK. You don't need Eve. Eve is covered in the mergers version. And once they have downloaded, I would suggest doing the FWE first. You're going to hit yes to all when asked to overwrite. I would then do the wait, I actually going to do them in the order it's suggesting. Now again, this warning, click no. We want to install it normally. But yes to all when asked to overwrite. WMK bridge. You must do this before the patch. And same again. And I now have all the files installed. Now if we go along to load order, the RH WMK bridge can be placed right below the weapon mods kits zeta.esp. I think that's where Boss actually suggests it's placed. But I can tell you that Boss tries to place RH FWE bridge right below the Fallout 3 Wanderers Edition files, and that causes problems for me. If this comes after RH WMK bridge, I get fairly huge problems with the Chinese assault rifle, and I have found that moving this to below the WMK bridge fixes that. So that is what I'm going to do. So back in game now. Again, my Deagle's fine, but if I look at my 10mm submachine gun, much better. There you go, straight down, straight through the iron sight. And my Chinese assault rifle, the same, much better. Now there are some weapons where I didn't manage to get the iron sights working. For example, this machine gun, which comes with FWE. As you see, no iron sights. There seems to be some attempt to fix this from Fallout Remastered. I tried using a Fallout Remastered patch, but unfortunately, whenever I use that, when I fire, the iron sights cause it to glitch quite heavily. I have a feeling it's because I'm also using weapon mod kits, WMK. So I have a feeling that if you're using WMK and FWE, there are some weapons you're going to have to accept won't do iron sights. I may be wrong, and if people have figured out how to do it, feel free to tell me, and I'll see if I can reproduce it, and I will make an encore for this video. But it's a small price to pay. Most of the weapons work really well. Okay, so we've got all of these installed. Generally, most of our weapons now have iron sights. But what happens if you want to change some of the settings? For example, that blur on the aim. If you go along to your Pip-Boy, you should find under Aid at the bottom something called Gun Oil. You select that and you can change a few things. So for example, turn off iron sights blur. I put away gun oil. And as you can see, no blur now. Okay guys, that's it for this video. I hope it helped, and I hope you feel a bit more comfortable about installing RH Ironsights. It's an excellent mod. I am thinking about setting up a page to upload some of these videos to, and to invite you guys to post screenshots from Fallout 3. Because in my Skyrim series I tend to show other people's, my subscribers, submitted images, and I really enjoy seeing some of your work as well. So I'm going to do that, and I'll talk about it in the next video. Anyway, I hope the video was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. If it was, remember, click the like button down below. I always appreciate that. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. And until then, as always, have fun.
For worldly acclaim, I just want to be the one you love.